All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, LeBron James is a truly transcendently great player. There's no doubt about that. I've never denied that. I think that you'd have to be an absolute fool to deny that. That's why it's unfortunate that you have people who try to put forth the notion that LeBron James could not play in a certain era. It's just nonsense. Any great player could play in any era. Unfortunately for him, though, he's also the beneficiary of being a pawn of the liberal sports media. And because of that, they love to concoct narratives pertaining to him to make him more glorified than he needs to be. He's already great enough. So we don't have to constantly be reminded about everything that he does off the court or what he gets involved in. Oftentimes, that's just a part of brand building. He is a corporate whore. And I don't say that to be dismissive or derisive. It just is what it is. He's a pawn of Nike. So you always have to be careful about what you believe a certain athlete believes in regards to his political affiliations or his ideological beliefs. It is what it is. I say all that to say this. One of the main notions that is put forth by the liberal sports media pertaining to LeBron James is that he's this great teammate. He's so magnanimous. Everybody loves him. Every superstar all across the NBA wants to play with him. Every time someone is on his team, they become a better player or their stats go up, and it's actually the opposite. When great players play with LeBron, their stats go down. Why is that? Because LeBron James reminds me of a certain Marvel character from back in the day called Galactus. For those of you brothers who collected comics back in the day, Galactus was a celestial character, an intergalactic being who used to go from planet to planet, taking the life force of that planet and then moving on. That is who LeBron James reminds me of. Every player that plays with him literally plays for him, because everything that's done is for the glory of LeBron. And you have to be good with that. If you play with LeBron James, you have to know that everything that occurs on the team in regards to offense and defense schematics is going to be to make him look good, to take the talents that he has, which are tremendous, and to make sure that they're utilized to their optimal degree. You have to be good with that. And in turn, you also have to be good with the understanding that LeBron James has a super ego. And he will try to demean and belittle his teammates if they don't know where their standing is. And I don't think that he does it to be malicious. I just think that being someone who is super successful, he tends to have a super ego. Certain people might say, well, how do you know this? Well, when you're perceptive, you know certain things. But Stephen A. Smith is going to confirm it. And he's going to shine a little bit of light on the dynamic between LeBron James and his teammates. So, of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals is Saturday on ESPN. We'll see if LeBron James is forced to carry the load yet again, fellas. He had a triple-double in Game 2. So, Max, let me ask you this.
Now, did you guys hear that? Molly Karam, looking like an astronaut, she says that LeBron James is forced to carry the load yet again. I told you guys when they made that big trade around the trade deadline that it was purely for the benefit of LeBron in more ways than one. Not only would it regalvanize him, give him back proper motivation to put forth his all, because he was not putting forth his all over the latter part of December into January. Not only would it regalvanize him, but it would also provide him with a proper cover story if he were not to be successful in the playoffs. If LeBron and his team were to have been eliminated in the first round by the Indiana Pacers, everyone would have said, well, he had no help. Now he's all the way in the NBA Finals, down 0-1 and could easily be up 0-1. And the narrative is what? LeBron James is powering the little engine that could. So it almost is deleterious to him at this point in his career to play with great players, because if he doesn't win, they're going to grade it against him, especially in the comparison to Jordan, which is basically all he's playing for right now. All LeBron James is playing for is to see what he can add to his legacy to try to dethrone Jordan. So that's why any potential teammates of his should understand that. If Paul George plays with LeBron, he's not going to average 25 a game. He's probably going to average something like 18 a game. Playing with LeBron is a lot like playing with Westbrook, except LeBron is a far greater player, far higher basketball intellect. But LeBron, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, they all play in the same style. Of course, Harden and Westbrook are not the same level of player as LeBron. But any player who plays with those type of players, you're just going to be a satellite in orbit around their planet. That's it.
We always speculate how LeBron feels about his supporting cast, but how should LeBron's teammates be feeling about him?
And what's up with Molly Karam's outfit? She looks like she's about to be in Austin Powers Part 4. The sports analyst who shagged me.
They should be genuflecting in his general direction.
More athlete idol worship. I've already noted this in regards to Mr. Max Kellerman. He idolizes LeBron James. That's why I call them stupid fans. And they're littered all throughout the basketball media, where there's Max Kellerman, Shannon Sharp, Nick Wright, Colin Cowherd. They venerate this person, LeBron James, and he's a great player. And I can see how, if you're carnally minded, you can deify certain athletes. Because even in the ancient world, in ancient Greece, ancient Rome, many of the most prominent athletes became like godlike figures. In ancient Rome, if you were a great gladiator, a prominent gladiator, and you won your freedom, they would make statues for you. That's why they're starting to make statues for these athletes today. Since they put up one for Michael Jordan, I would say maybe a little bit under 20 years ago. That's when they first started to build these shrines for athletes, these statues for athletes. It's in commemoration of what was done, not only by the athlete, but it's in commemoration of what was done in ancient Rome. Modern day America is just a reinvigoration of the Roman Empire, or at least the spirit of the Roman Empire.
They should feel obliged to play their best. Even when the ball sticks with LeBron, that is in the best interest of his team. There may have never been a player better at extracting the most value from the players around him.
Or there may have never been a player who's better at extracting the life force of his teammates than LeBron James. When you look at a Larry Bird, a Magic Johnson, these were players that actually made their teammates greater than they would have been had they not played with them. What LeBron James does is almost like the symbiote in Spider-Man. You know, that black suit? He adds to his teammates in that he's going to take them places that they've never been before. Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. and Kevin Love, most of those players had never even been to the playoffs before they played with LeBron. So he can drag them along. He can take a great player like a Dwayne Wade, or a player who may have had issues getting into the Hall of Fame like a Chris Bosh had he not played with LeBron. And he can take them farther than they ever would have gone before. But in the process of doing so, he's going to siphon some of their life force for the quote-unquote greater good.
When he needs to monopolize the ball because of the lack of talent on the roster, as he did in that series against the Warriors that I bring up from several years ago, where he took it 6 games with Dellavedova as his second best player when Kyrie and Kevin Love were hurt, he does that. When he needs to spread it around or even let some killer in the fourth quarter take over like Kyrie Irving, he does that. He does an advanced calculus in his own mind. How can I best help the team win? And
let me say this very quickly. There's no doubt in my mind that LeBron James has, if not the greatest basketball IQ in NBA history. He's up there in the top 5. He's up there with Magic, Bird, Isaiah Thomas, etc. He's up there with Jordan, all of them. He's right there with those guys. There's no doubt about that.
that's what he provides. I don't know if anyone's ever done so much with so little to at least get to the finals as he did with the Cavs the first time they went. You could argue either.
Well, you can say that no one's ever done so much with so little, or we can accurately appraise LeBron's career, and we could state matter-of-factly that he's had the most talented roster in the NBA from 2010 all the way to 2016 when the Warriors signed Kevin Durant. That's a fact. So the media narrative is LeBron has never had enough help or never had any help. That's a complete lie. And it's very interesting how the media has reversed course since LeBron went back to Cleveland. He went from someone who was running from the responsibility of carrying the torch and raising a team to championship level by himself, quote unquote, because allegedly that was the paradigm that was established according to the liberal sports media, when he, as a so-called black man, decided that he was going to utilize his free agency rights and go to Miami. But then as soon as he leaves Miami and goes back to Cleveland, he becomes the darling of the liberal sports media again. almost like a slave that returned back to his plantation and had a party thrown for him. Isn't that something?
Iverson in Philadelphia that year, and now maybe again this year if he does it again. So these role players, Stephen A., should feel obligated to be at their very best, not rolling their eyes, because you bring up a guy like Jordan Clarkson, who's perceived by some as a talented, promising backcourt combo guard kind of guy. Stephen A., they traded him and Larry Nance Jr., who actually had some value on the trade market, I think, essentially for an expiring contract in Isaiah Thomas. So how much value do you think he really had?
Well, Jordan Clarkson is a nice little piece. There's a player like him in every generation who seems to the naked eye to have a certain amount of physical ability, but he's never going to be better than what he is right now. About a 15-point per game guy. Got a little hops. Got a little freak to his game. Very, very streaky jump shot. When he's out there on the court, he's going to give you his best, but he's never going to be much more than what he is. Once again, this team is perfect for LeBron James. He's almost like Robin Hood and his merry men. However far he goes, the media is going to glorify him. When he finally does get shut down, it's going to be, well, LeBron didn't have enough help. He went against Goliath, the Golden State Warriors. And isn't it so funny, coming into the 2014 season, who thought that the Golden State Warriors were so super, super talented? They looked like a fun little team on the West Coast with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green at that time was coming off the bench. He was coming off the bench back in 2014. They had just signed Iguodala. And all of a sudden, well, I think Iguodala had actually came in 2013. All of a sudden, 4 or 5 years later, they're this super team, allegedly. And they were being called a super team even before Kevin Durant came there. So I believe the main reason why the liberal sports media has cast the Golden State Warriors as a super team is so that they can create this dynamic between LeBron and Golden State that once again he has to slay this dragon. When in reality, all Golden State is a very well put together squad that plays together. And they're able to utilize certain schematics that always give LeBron problems, that being ball movement and good defense. Any teams that utilize ball movement and good defense are going to give him problems and his team problems. But the LeBron James system is oftentimes good enough to get him over the hump, at least to get to the championship round. But by the time he gets there, he'll oftentimes not have enough left. And he will allow himself to get outsmarted, because you can use LeBron's strengths against him. You can use his yearning to always be in control against him.
Max, I want you to sit back and listen to what I'm about to break down to you, because this is very, very serious what I'm about to say. On its face, there is nothing wrong with what you said, but you need to remember your words. Initially, like most, you had a problem with Kyrie wanting out of Cleveland because the sentiments that you expressed about LeBron's teammates was similar to what you expressed about his former teammate. And look at how that panned out. What I'm trying to say to you...
In other words, sometimes LeBron stops some of his more talented teammates from showing what they can do all the way because they have to play in the LeBron James system. That's what I've been telling you brothers for the longest time. And people have a hard time grasping that because they watch how magnificent LeBron is and they say, wow, look at this guy go. That's why I liken him unto a lead actor who's always performing in vanity pieces. He's not able to take part in an ensemble piece because he always needs the camera on him. LeBron always has to be the lead guy. If he's not going to know what to do with himself. That's why I'm not sure how well he'll be able to fit with the Houston Rockets or Philadelphia 76ers were he to go there.
You is that, of course, LeBron's the best in the world, and any teammate should be, flattered and indebted for being a teammate of his because he's so great and so incredibly unselfish most of the time. But
allegedly.
But you also have to understand that there is a level of selfishness to LeBron that doesn't get chronicled nearly as much as it should.
Of course, and let me say this, with all great athletes and with all very successful people, there's going to be a level of quote-unquote selfishness to a certain degree that may be hard for others to understand. Because that quote-unquote selfishness or that belief in oneself is what allowed the person to become as successful as they became in the first place. So they're always going to come off as people who have to have things done a certain way. Things have to go their way because they believe that their way is the best way because it's always been thus far.
Because we get caught up in throwing platitudes his way that we don't dissect who he is and how he can be. For example, LeBron James, my guys. LeBron James, my teammates. LeBron James, I'm the leader. LeBron James is not only doing what he does as a player, he's dictating when other guys get shine. It's not that he necessarily is hesitant to give it to them, because when they've earned it, he certainly heaps praise upon them, and that's to be commended. The problem is that no matter how he goes about doing it, there is something about him that's always reminding folks he's on another level from them. And when it came to Kyrie, Kyrie found that unacceptable. If you listen to the rhetoric oozing out of LeBron James' mouth, periodically, not consistently, not all the time, but periodically, he finds a way to remind you of something we already know.
Stephen A., that's because, number one, LeBron James is very insecure in what his overall place is going to be in NBA lore. He wants to be above Michael Jordan. And he knows that really the only way that he can do so at this point is to pile up as many stats as he can. He knows that he's not going to be able to accrue the amount of championships that he'll need for people to look and say, well, Jordan was 6-0, but LeBron was, say, 9-3. So that pretty much balances it out. And LeBron was able to transcend the NBA to a certain degree, even greater than Jordan, because he has 6 or 7 regular season MVPs, things of that nature. LeBron knows that he's not going to be able to accumulate those level of accomplishments. So he's trying to force people to accept him as the greatest player of all time by utilizing strategically placed members of the media to push that LeBron James is the greatest ever on television every day, and hopefully get people to accept that. And also playing a spectacular brand of basketball on the floor.
He's on another level. And when you're a part of a team, it's all right to do that on occasion, in cases of emergency or in cases of importance where there clearly needs to be a distinction between one level of talent and another. We understand that. But you can't need these guys in order to produce while constantly doing that. And throughout his career, particularly over the last several years, LeBron has made a point to do that. Maybe unintentionally, maybe, innocently, but he's done it. And it has served to alienate folks. There was a time.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, he is an alpha male. An alpha male will always make sure that the other wolves in his wolf pack know that this is his territory. That's just part of that mentality. So Kyrie Irving did the right thing to leave. In order for LeBron James to feel comfortable in Miami, Dwayne Wade had to look at him and divest control of that wolf pack over to LeBron. That's why they were unsuccessful in that first season. LeBron was uncomfortable not being fully in control.
There was a time when people were wondering whether or not Kevin Love wanted to be there. We all saw that Kyrie wanted out. You have to pay attention to those things and recognize that when you are a superstar and other people praise you, there's no need for you to toot your own horn.
Well, the only way that he'd be able to think like that if he was operating according to a sense of security, when clearly he's not Stephen A. Smith. Once again, he has aspirations for himself, and he's worried that his on-court team accolades are not going to mesh with the image that he wants to be perceived as. LeBron wants to be perceived as the ultimate winner. He knows that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. He's 3-5 right now. He will most likely be 3-6 if by some strange circumstance he ends up defeating this Golden State Warriors team and he's 4-5. There are going to be many people who are going to try to push for him being greater than Jordan. What I will give him the credit for is finally getting to Mount Rushmore. I would actually put him over Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson is 5-4 in the finals. LeBron would be 4-5, and he certainly would never have played with the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. LeBron James has not, and he will have beaten the Golden State Warriors, certainly without the help that Magic had in defeating the Sixers or the Pistons or the Celtics. So I would fairly strongly consider putting LeBron above Magic were he to defeat the Golden State Warriors in these finals. And that would be pretty much as far as he'd be able to go. I don't see him ever being able to jump over Bill Russell, Kareem, and certainly not Jordan on my list. Jordan was greater at his peak than LeBron. The stats tell you that. Also, the accolades tell you that as well. Now, LeBron is going to have greater longevity, but no disrespect. I mean, let's check his bloodstream for that. Allegedly.
But in indirect ways, not that elevates him, but that minimizes others. Maybe not intentionally, but he's done it. And that's the point in all of this. So when you say what you said, understand that while you may be right, and we may all know it, that very feeling is what LeBron has conveyed, and it arguably has been to his detriment.
I want to respond to that, but not to try to negate what you said. I understand it. I think it's a good, nuanced point. I think, but what I take away from that is no one's perfect, and the best could be even better. In other words, LeBron, there's room for improvement in terms of the way you treat people, though I think he treats people by and large very well, especially considering he's been treated like a god since he was like 15 years old.
Yes, and people like yourself don't do anything to controvert that treatment by stating that his teammates should be bowing down to him and lavishing him with praise worthy of a deity. So you're contributing to whatever sense of godhood he may be experiencing or suffering from. That's why it's necessary sometimes not to bring people down to earth per se, but to give them a clearer view of what's going on around them so that they can have a greater sense of self. It's not about, quote unquote, being a hater or trying to cast someone down or denigrate them. Oftentimes when people try to denigrate is because they'd rather bring you down to the level that they feel they're at rather than aspire to climb up to your level. But in the case of a LeBron James, who's extremely talented and of course very accomplished, the only thing that he may be missing sometimes is a sense of understanding that he's already going to go down as one of the all-time greats. Once you get into the top 5, it's all conjecture and opinion. You have people who think that Bill Russell's the greatest ever. You have people who think Kareem is, Jordan is, Bird, Magic, and LeBron. And you have people who think that Wilt Chamberlain is. Scottie Pippen just stated that. So once you get into the top 10, especially up into that top 5 area, it's pretty much all about perspective and opinion and what type of style you favor.
Right? So given that, how many people would be as level-headed as he is even, right? They'd have egos even more inflated out of proportion. But sure, there's room for improvement with everyone in almost every category, and that includes LeBron James. I wouldn't dispute what you're saying, but I would say that if people are getting their feelings hurt by LeBron, yes, LeBron needs to work on that, but damn, suck it up. How many players in the history of basketball, and I would say none off the top of my head, have done more to elevate their teammates actually on the court than LeBron James? In Kyrie's example, maybe there was a little bit of that Shaq-Kobe thing. And maybe even it was closer to Shaq-Kobe than I recognized. I thought, LeBron's a 5-star player, Kyrie's a 4-star player. Shaq and Kobe were both 5-star players. Shaq was a hair better because of his size.
Well, when Shaq and Kobe played together, Shaq was a 5-star player. Kobe incrementally built up. I would say that Kobe became somewhere around a 5-star player around the 01 season. The 2000-2001 season going into 01-02, where Kobe was up there around 4.8, bordering around 5. Because I really don't think that Kobe was literally a 5-star player per se until around the 2007-2008 season. Many of the Kobe Bryant superfans are going to get upset by that. I really don't give a shit. I just think that his overall understanding of the game did not reach its zenith until the 07-08 season, which is why he won the MVP that season. I thought prior to that he was too much of a shot jacker. Now, of course, many of his fans will say, well, he didn't play with anybody during that time period. Well, I will respond back by stating that the reason why his roster lacked so much talent was because he ran off all the talented players. He ran off Shaq. He ran off everybody. So mental maturation is a part of becoming a 5-star player.
And And so, it's not the same sort of thing. But maybe Kyrie's whole point was, no, it's a little closer to Shaq Kobe than you realize, even if Kyrie's not claiming he's better than LeBron. And maybe that was dysfunctional the way LeBron was handling it, and he should have handled it better, sure. And Kyrie's kind of proving his point by going to the Celtics. My point would be, could you imagine LeBron on the Celtics, what that team would be doing right now? The fact is
Yes, that would definitely be a championship level team. There's no doubt about that.
He is so much better than everyone else, and he does not use that talent to isolate himself. He uses it to uplift those around him, by and large, even if he doesn't do it perfectly.
Well, I wouldn't say that LeBron necessarily seeks to uplift his teammates. I say that he tries to coach them up into the LeBron James system so that they can carry him around. That's what I would say. And when I say carry him around, I don't mean that they're the sole force that's used to elevate him. But once again, it's like a symbiotic relationship. He needs them because he's playing a team sport, even though he knows that he's pretty transcendent over every other player in basketball right now. And it's discernible. At one time, I thought that there was a slim difference between him and Kevin Durant, but it's very obvious to me, especially this season, with the vast improvement that he's made in his overall offensive game, that the difference between him and KD is very discernible. Very discernible. As a matter of fact, it's questionable as to whether or not Kevin Durant is definitely the second best player in the NBA. Because in regards to impact, I believe that Steph Curry is more impactful than him. So I think that it's LeBron 1 and it's KD and Steph, maybe 2 and 2A. And of course, a healthy Kawhi Leonard might be a 2B. The difference between those three players may be very infinitesimal, but the difference between LeBron and the second place player in the NBA overall right now is rather stark. There's no doubt about that, because he's improved greatly, especially in his overall mental outlook towards the game. But I agree with Stephen A. Smith when he says that's not the point. I think that LeBron understands that he needs teammates to feed that machine. Almost like, fuel. He needs them. All he needs is a little bit. It's almost like the DeLorean in Back to the Future. Doc Brown, he was able to customize the DeLorean where he could throw beer cans and shit into the machine. Anything to get it going. Once it got to 88 miles per hour, it was good to go. Didn't matter what he put into the fuel tank after a while. That's LeBron. LeBron's at the level right now where he knows all he needs are certain types of players, and he can get back to the finals just off of talent, hard work, and experience.
That's not the point. That's not the point. You know what, Molly? I'll end it by saying this to you. Molly, you know what? You could be fantastic, but if you were in somebody's face telling them every day, I'm the bomb, I'm fantastic, look at me, shouldn't you feel privileged?
Oh, yeah. You mean something like how you do every day, Stephen A. Smith? Sounds like you, brother.
How would they feel?
They wouldn't be able to stand me.
Sound like Molly talking about you, bro.
All right. We'll leave it on that note. As far as the role players, though, they got to step up at home. We'll see if that happens.
Look at Max Kellerman with that little smirk on his face. I think he picked up the same thing that I picked up. Like, Stephen A., sound like you're talking about yourself, and you're not aware of it.
Happens in Game 3, guys.
Sure.
When we come back.
But anyway, that's it on that. I just thought that was a very interesting segment, illustrating the dichotomy or the relationship, the rapport between LeBron James and his teammates. But anyway, peace.